Let's dive right in. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're exploring a place where real medieval history, a grisly true crime scandal, and, quite frankly, deeply unsettling supernatural folklore all just violently collide. I'm talking about the magnificent Château de Brissac. And this isn't just some dusty old building. It is a living, breathing monument that has literally watched half a millennium of French history unfold. So, we're going to unpack the wild architecture, the aristocratic drama, and the terrifying legend that has made this massive estate world famous.
So, what would you do if you stepped inside France's tallest and supposedly most haunted castle? Seriously, picture yourself walking into an ancient stone fortress that has been continuously inhabited for over 500 years by the exact same family. We're talking about an estate that has weathered religious wars, the French Revolution, multiple world wars, but beyond all the battles fought outside its walls, it survived a legendary, bloody murder right inside its own chambers. You walk in and it's got this incredibly heavy, incredibly ancient energy to it.
And part of that energy comes from its truly unreasonable scale. 7 stories, 204 rooms. Just wrap your head around those numbers for a second. Its monumental facades just absolutely soar out of this beautiful landscaped park, easily earning it the nickname the Giant of the Loire Valley. Honestly, when you walk up to it, you are instantly dwarfed by its sheer size. It's not just a big house, it's this towering statement of power and endurance, literally standing taller than any other chateau in all of France.
Now, its unique look really boils down to one fascinating strategy. It's basically a new castle, partially built inside an old castle that was partially destroyed. It's like a giant architectural puzzle. See, the original 11th century medieval fortress was built by Count Fulk Nera, a guy remembered for being both brutally violent and deeply religious. Then, centuries later, in the 1600s, Charles II Cossé decided, he wanted a lavish Renaissance and Baroque palace. But instead of tearing the old fortress completely down, he just built right over and around the surviving medieval walls. The result is this crazy, slightly off-axis stack of stone layers holding centuries of history. But as you might guess, an ancient fortress with secret layers almost always hides a few dark secrets. Enter La Dame Verte, or the Green Lady. She's the castle's most famous and absolutely most chilling resident. Her tragic legend has persisted through the centuries. Overnight guests and even the current stewards of the estate still report encounters with her. She's said to be the spirit of a murdered noblewoman, trapped in purgatory for her sins, just wandering those dark corridors once the sun goes down. And these sightings, they aren't just vague, blurry shadows. The descriptions are incredibly specific and honestly horrifying. People describe her as a naturally tall, with flowing dark hair, wearing a tattered green nightgown, which supposedly shows how she was hurriedly caught in a state of undress. But the absolute worst detail? She's said to have horrific holes right where her eyes and nose should be. Folklorists think this facial mutilation reflects the absolute savagery of her murder. Oh, and if you don't happen to see her, you might just hear her. Visitors constantly report unearthly moans and the rattling of chains echoing down from the upper rooms and the chapel tower.
So who exactly was this ghost in real life? If we pull back the curtain on the actual verified history, we find Charlotte de Valois, later known as Charlotte de Brissac. Born around 1446, she wasn't just your average noblewoman. She was actually the acknowledged illegitimate daughter of King Charles VII and his famous mistress, Agnès Sorel. So she grew up surrounded by the absolute opulence of the royal court. But her life took a really sharp turn in 1462 when her half-brother, the future King Louis XI, forced her into this highly strategic, totally loveless political marriage. A marriage that would ultimately lead to her brutal murder in 1477 when she was just 31 years old.
To really understand how this happened, we have to look at what was just a disastrous love triangle. On one side, you've got her husband, Jacques de Brissac. He was significantly older, a very duty-bound Grand Seneschal of Normandy, completely entrenched in this quiet provincial noble life. Charlotte, who was used to the vibrant, exciting royal court, just felt entirely suffocated by him and this rural isolation. On the other side, her lover, Pierre de Laverne. Now, Pierre wasn't some random peasant. He was a trusted huntsman, a squire, and, get this, Jacques' own foster brother, raised right alongside him since infancy. Because of his position, Pierre had completely discreet, trusted access to the household, which sparked an incredibly dangerous illicit affair. Well, that tension finally snapped on May 31st, 1477, culminating in a truly deadly discovery. Jacques returned to his estate after a long day out hunting. The historical records tell us that he walked right into a bedchamber and found his wife, Charlotte, and his trusted huntsman, Pierre, in bed together. Obviously, the double betrayal, his wife and his foster brother, sent Jacques into an immediate, blind, jealous rage. And that rage manifested in barbaric violence. 100 sword thrusts. Jacques didn't just kill them, he obliterated them. Caught in a frenzy of 15th century frontier justice, he attacked them both with his hunting sword, or possibly an axe. Some reports even say that in his absolute fury, he completely slashed open Charlotte's abdomen. It was an absolute bloodbath, a savage double homicide that definitely shocked the nobility, but, horribly enough, actually aligned with the era's brutal privileges when it came to spousal infidelity. Now, it is absolutely crucial that we separate the spooky embellishments from the cold, hard facts here. The local myth claims Charlotte was murdered right there in the chambers of Château de Brissac, and that's why she's cursed to wander its halls in purgatory. But factually, the murder actually took place at a totally different family property called Château de Rouse. And as for Jacques, well, because of his high noble status, he didn't even face execution. He was locked up for a bit, heavily fined, sure, but he eventually received a full royal pardon from King Charles VIII, and his legitimate children inherited everything. What we're actually seeing here is a fascinating look at human storytelling. Over the centuries, regional oral history just kind of grafted this sensational true crime onto the looming Gothic walls of Brissac. It's a perfect example of how historical trauma morphs into local ghost lore. But you know, Charlotte's story doesn't just end in a bloodied bedroom. Her real-life legacy survived remarkably well. First of all, her son, Louis de Brissac, inherited all that massive wealth and those titles, eventually becoming the Grand Huntsman of France. Then, he went on to marry Diane de Poitiers, who would later become one of the absolute most powerful women in all of French history. Through that union, the Brissac bloodline secured this enduring aristocratic influence. It just goes to show that even a horrific scandal couldn't break their iron grip on the French nobility. Okay, so what about the castle itself? How did it manage to survive all this time? Well, it survived through constant reinvention. The Cossé-Brissac family bought the place way back in 1502, and honestly, they never really left. They poured a ton of wealth into it. They added these stunning 17th century gold-leafed ceilings and huge Venetian crystal chandeliers that you can actually still see today. But for me, the most mind-blowing addition came in 1890. Jeanne Say, the widow of the Marquis, didn't just pack up and abandon the fortress when her husband died. No, she built a massive, private opera house right inside of it. Just imagine that for a second. A brutal medieval fortress suddenly echoing with Parisian opera and full orchestras. That's the real magic of Brissac. It just constantly adapted. And incredibly, this place isn't just a stuffy museum. It is a living monument right now, today. Despite a millennium of warfare, political chaos, and grisly scandals, the Dukes of Brissac still live there. It's a functioning family home that stretches across half a millennium of history. And the best part? They actually welcome the public. You can go there for wine tastings from their own private vineyards, take extensive historic tours to check out the artwork, and yes, they even offer overnight bed and breakfast stays in those very same tapestry-lined rooms. So I have to leave you with one final provocative thought to wrap up our explainer today. You've seen the totally monumental scale of this place. You know the verified, absolutely brutal true crime history of a 15th century double homicide. And you've heard the deeply unsettling descriptions of the Green Lady wandering those upper floors with no face. Knowing all of this, are you brave enough to book a room at Château de Brissac tonight? I'll let you think about that one. Thanks for joining me as we unpack the wild secrets of the Giant of the Loire Valley.